And continuing with our geometry chapter here, in 7.3 we're going to talk about triangles. So really the most important thing for you to remember is that the sum, or when you add all the measures of the angles in a triangle, you're always going to get 180 degrees. Okay? That is super, super important. So congruent sides are sides that are the same length. Okay, so a scalene triangle, and then we mark congruent sides. These mean that these are congruent. When you see those little tick marks, it means that they're the same size. Well, in the first one here, scalene, nobody has a mark on it, so this means that there are no congruent sides. An isosceles triangle has 2 congruent sides, and an equilateral triangle has all 3 sides are the same. That's by the sides. Okay, so these are naming a triangle by its sides. Well, what if they ask you to name a triangle by its angles? Well, that's where you'll look here. So here's this little box that we talked about in the last section, and that means it's a right angle. It has one right angle, and they don't have to put the box. Remember, the box means 90 degrees. So if you see 90 degrees in any of your angles, that is a right triangle. This one, where all of these angles here look less than 90 degrees, would mean it's an acute triangle. So it has 3 acute angles. All angles have to be acute for it to be an acute triangle. And this one, this guy looks really big. So that is going to be an obtuse triangle, and it can only have one obtuse angle. The other 2 are going to be acute, because otherwise it would add up to be more than 180 degrees, and it wouldn't be a triangle anymore. Okay, so pause the video and fill those in before moving on. Okay, so now in the first example, we're going to classify the triangle by its sides. So that means we look at the top 3 terms. So if there are 2 congruent sides, boom, boom, it means I'm looking at an isosceles triangle. And in B, if there are no sides marked, you can't assume that anybody looks the same. If they're not marked, you can't say it. So if nobody's marked, it's going to be scalene. Okay? Let's move on. Okay, now what if we classify a triangle by its angles? Okay, so now I want to look at the second set of words. So looking at this number jumps out at me. It has 1 obtuse angle, so automatically it's an obtuse triangle. And all 3 of these numbers are less than 90, so it has 3 acute angles, so therefore it's an acute triangle. Okay, now what if I give you a triangle here and one of your angles is missing? Well, you know that all angles in a triangle, this doesn't work for everybody, add up to 180 degrees. Okay? So I can make a big old equation, add up my 3 things to get 180 degrees. I can just add the 2 numbers that they already gave me. Okay. And then how am I going to figure out how much more is needed to get to 180? Well, I'll just subtract that 134 from both sides. 180 minus 134. 7, 10, 6, 4. That means my missing angle must be 46 degrees. So if you're given 2 angles of a triangle, just add up the 2 that they gave you and subtract that number from 180. And that'll give you your answer. Okay? So now on to the quick checks. First one, they want you to classify triangle BCD. So you're only looking at BCD, not the whole picture, just the part they ask you to. So classify that triangle by its sides. So you want to look at the first 3 terms on the previous page. Number 2, classify each triangle by its angle measures. So you want to use the bottom 3 terms on the first page. And then the last one is just like example 3, find the value of x in the triangle. Okay, you know what all the angles in a triangle add up to. So figure out what you have and how much more you need to equal up to a whole triangle. And that's that. That was a nice short section. So try those and we'll check your work in class.